Good morning. Actually, it's good afternoon. I kind of usually film in the mornings, but it's spring break, so had to work through that with the kiddos home. Welcome to another True Crime and Beauty on Tuesday. It is Tuesday, March 14th, and we're going to get into some true crime today. If you are new here, my name is Leah, and every Tuesday, I kind of take a moment and go over a case that I have been mulling over or have been interested in or has just popped up in my feed, because once you start Googling things for true crime, a lot of things come up. Today's serial killer's crimes lasted possibly 40 years. His crimes spanned over 16 states, until he was finally arrested in September of 2012. He had the nickname the Choke and Stroke Killer. There are a few things that I'd like to place a warning for. This is a true crime video, and in true crime videos you can have graphic content, things such as murder, rape, assault, battery, graphic or gruesome details. Like previous videos, I'm going to be trying to leave out the names of the victims just to give them privacy, but if you do want to go ahead and look up the victims, they are all on the internet. But there are quite a few in this story, in fact 93 to count. We are talking about Samuel Little. So let's go ahead and jump on into his story. Samuel Little was actually born in Reynolds, Georgia as Samuel McDowell, and his mom was a teenage prostitute, or that's what Samuel had a tendency to label her as. For those of you who are interested, he was a Gemini. His mother's name was Bessie Mae Little, and the authorities believe that she actually delivered him while she was having a stint in jail. His father's name was Paul McDowell, and they believe that he was about 19 years old when Samuel was born. Other people believe that Bessie was a maid, and that was how she worked and made her money, as opposed to what Samuel had talked about, her being a teenage prostitute. He was born June 7th, 1940. Per usual, I'm going to try to remember to tell you the products that I'm using. Now, the last video, I did bring up the fact that I was using a little preview box of the Morphe eyebrow products, and it had like everything in it. Well, this is the Morphe eyebrow pomade that I'm trying, and it's in the color Java. And I'm going to go ahead and just start using it. I'll try not to spend so much time on my eyebrows this time. Not that anybody's complained, but eyebrows are a thing. They like take forever to do. So soon after Samuel was born, they decided to book it and move to Lorain, Ohio, where he was brought up mainly by his grandparents. Now, this is something that I see very frequently in these, that there's some kind of upturn in the family, and it leaves the kid perhaps feeling distraught or displaced. He attended Hawthorne Junior High, in which he had some disciplinary issues, and he really wasn't striving into the best direction for his grades. So he had academic and disciplinary problems. During Samuel's stints in prison, he did start confessing, especially in the very end. He actually confessed to a lot of things. So he liked to talk. And while he was in prison, he did talk about, at an early age, he had the fascination with strangling his victims. Like, it created some type of sexual gratification. And I'm saying that because the victims weren't sexually assaulted. Well, the murder victims weren't sexually assaulted. And it seemed like that was his interest in strangling, or perhaps like taking the life from them. So he started collecting true crime books that did talk a lot about people who murdered and strangled people. And that was like really fascinating to him. But as he got a little bit older, and I do mean a little bit older because it wasn't really much older at all. At the age of 16 in 1956, he did break and enter into a home in Omaha, Nebraska. And there he was held in a juvenile detention center. Because at the time when he listed his mom down, it was for, location of parent. I don't know if he was trying to hide her or what, but he did put her down, and it said that he didn't know where she was. But after he got out, he ended up moving to Florida with her. So it makes me think that he was really just kind of concealing her whereabouts, and so he could have a place to escape to. And while he was living down in Florida with his mother, he worked varying shifts as a cemetery maintenance person, and also an ambulance attendant, which I didn't know you could just be like an ambulance attendant. I don't know if that means driver or what, but he worked as an ambulance attendant, and he was able to travel a bit more widely doing these types of jobs. This is the NYX brow glue, by the way. Today we're going to be working out of some more beauty creations, these little pots. I have all of them. Literally, I have all of them. And we're also going to work out of some Juvia's Place and Violet Voss. I know I wanted a bright look. I just don't really know where or what type of bright look. So we're just going to kind of flow with it as we talk. So naturally, as you probably can guess, since Sam was just out traveling around, that it was just a matter of time before he was going to get into some more trouble with the law. It's like he could not stay out of trouble. So he went ahead and just got in trouble in 8 more states. And his crimes varied. Some of them were worse than others, but his crimes were DUI, fraud, shoplifting, soliciting a prostitute, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and then finally graduating to rape. But we're not going to be talking much about sexual assaults in this one, which is a nice break from the other ones because it seems like that's always in a bunch of them. Now, during these stints in jail, he actually took up boxing, and he liked to call himself the prize fighter. He was obviously really impressed with his capabilities. And I'm laughing, but it because it's funny. I don't know really who he was fighting in jail, but he liked to call himself prize fighter. Was he the next Ali or something, all up in there. And he did a lot of jail stints. So, he was probably really good at boxing. As for prize fighter, I don't know. I don't really know who he was boxing in jail to get that title, but he did like to call himself that. In 1961, he was actually arrested for breaking into a furniture store in Lorraine, and he actually did a couple of years for that, and he got out in 1964. I'm not really sure why he broke into a furniture store. It's how, if you don't have a vehicle, how are you, I don't really understand that thought process. Maybe he didn't think it through, and that's why he got caught. Breaking into a furniture store and just to break into it. Maybe it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But he broke into that furniture store and he spent 3 years in jail. Maybe he was just looking for a spot to rest his head. Some people do that. They'll work the system, is what it's called, and they'll do it to be in jail so they can have 3 square meals and a bed and everything like that. And as time went on, he continued to rack up the times in jail and his encounters with the law. He was just, I guess he just was all down for it or whatever, because he actually racked up a charge of assault on a government official. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's a big one anywhere you go. Like, you should not be doing that. You shouldn't be assaulting anybody, but assaulting a government official, that sounds like a big no-no. And he also had a charge of, you know, his typical go-around charges: assault and battery. This one was attempted rape. It wasn't an actual full-on rape, but attempted rape. Fraud, shoplifting. It's like, this is his MO. This is what he likes to do. This is his jam. This is where he's comfortable at committing these crimes. Or so that's how he was for those 11 years. So during those, he was just hopping all over the U.S. That was in like 11 different states, just racking up the charges, enjoying himself. You know what, I'm painting on my eyes and doing stuff like this. I feel like Bob Ross. If you don't know who that is, Google that. He was a painter on TV a lot. So just Google it if you don't know who he is. So in 1982, Sam was arrested in, I'm going to screw this up and I'm very sorry, Pascagoula, Mississippi. And yeah, he was arrested and charged with the murder of a 22-year-old African-American woman. I will tell you that all of his victims were African-American from what was stated. Her body was found in September, but the charge did not stick because the witnesses that saw them together, they just weren't really credible witnesses, or at least that's the way the grand jury felt, like they were not credible witnesses. Why am I getting Ronald McDonald vibes right now with this look? I'm gonna have to fix that. Sometimes I start with a look and then I'm like, oh crap, that's not what I was going for at all. And I was definitely not going for Ronald McDonald vibes at all. But no wonder I was like, hey, orange and yellow go together because, yeah, Ronald McDonald. But we're going to fix that. We're going to fix this. This is going to look better. Okay. Haha, or it's going to get worse. I'm at the point where we're committed to this look, so whatever's going to happen with it, that's where we're going with it, okay? So just have fun with it. Makeup's meant to be fun. After not being indicted for this murder, they actually shipped his tushy over to Florida again. So he's back in Florida. I wish people would just keep their own criminals and don't send them here. I'm kind of like over that. That's happened a lot in these cases. And he was actually shipped to Florida for the murder of a 26-year-old woman in Florida. Because remember, he lived in Florida a little while with his mama. Well, that body was also found in September. So this man was all over the place. He's in one spot. And he was in Mississippi and then he was in Florida doing the murders. Okay. Around the same age. The women were around the same age. You know, 4 years apart. The witness of this case said that they saw them hanging around together, this 26-year-old woman. And that they had... and these were the days like leading up to her disappearance. But 2 years later, he was acquitted of the charges because they just felt like they didn't have enough information on this, okay? Kind of like OJ, you know, just acquitted of the charges. I'm not sorry. Not sorry that I said that. Just acquitted. He was acquitted. So that means, I don't know if you guys are aware of what acquitted means, but acquitted means if you are acquitted from that particular crime, you cannot be charged with that particular crime again. Okay? It's kind of like double jeopardy. And if you guys feel like you want me to cover OJ, go ahead and leave that in the comments or DM me on Instagram about that. But I'm pretty sure that one is super well known. But so are the rest of these. So if you guys decide that you want me to cover that one, let me know. Sam was over Florida. He was over the East Coast, so he moved over to California, sharing his lovely self with the rest of the United States. He moved around the San Diego area of California, which is a pretty popular area, I would think. And he just didn't waste any time getting back in the swing of his criminal activities. Okay, he just kept on going. He was actually arrested for kidnapping, beating, and strangling a 22-year-old woman, but she survived it, which is great because it's like, hi, not just a witness, she actually survived the situation. I will say that by now Sam's probably gotten pretty comfortable because he actually, didn't get caught right away. A month had gone by and he's all good. No arrests, no nothing. I would have to say he probably was just like, oh, it's all good. They're not suspecting me. They're not expecting anyone. So he actually was found in the same area that he strangled the other woman who escaped. He was found next to an unconscious woman in the back seat of his car who had been beaten, kidnapped, and strangled. She was unconscious, and so the police officers arrested him. What gets me is the fact that he was in the same location, so he was super cocky. He was like, yeah, I got this on lock. I am not going to get caught, so I'm just going to be in the same area and pick up who I got to pick up and then handle them and be done. Because if a survivor hadn't already come forward, then obviously he was so scary. Well, when the police caught him and caught up to him and he was in that situation, he did get arrested. He did get charged with both women. Now this is where it gets me. He only served 2.5 years for the crimes that he committed on both of these women. Just 2.5. 2.5. Just 2.5 years. What's that going to do? He had already done other stints in prison. This wasn't a big deal. He was a prize fighter in prison. This didn't do nothing for him. He was released February of 1987, back into the world, and ready to have his adventures again. During this time, he actually committed about 10 additional murders. Okay, so he's just kind of bouncing around, and California is pretty close to Texas at the bottom, so he just kind of was bouncing all over the place and didn't really seem to have a problem with committing murders or finding murder victims. And this is the One Size Secure the Blur primer. And that's in 1987. So as the time furthers, like I'm saying, throughout this time frame, he committed 10 more murders that they know of at this time. And then he got arrested in 2012. So we've skipped like a bunch of years, right? We're in 2012, and now he's being arrested in a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, where he was just staying, probably running his little shoplifting and all of that, crimes. But he did get arrested there, and he was extradited to California to actually face narcotics charges, not even murder charges, but narcotics charges. But while there, DNA, had come up and about, and DNA linked him to other crimes, which means he was linked to those murders. We're going to be using the Ulta Full Coverage Liquid Concealer, and we're also going to be using the IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Foundation. So Sam was now being linked to multiple murders because of the DNA, which secured his involvement in the murders themselves. So finally, we have some type of way of linking him, right? All three were found murdered on the streets of LA in various places. One woman was found July 13th, 1987. Another woman was found September 3rd, 1987. And then another woman was found August 14th of 1989. All of these were proven and linked to him. And he was charged January 7th, 2013 for the murders of these women. For me, I stopped and thought, well, it's about dang time. He's been doing this since 1956. During this time, with approximately 3 months later, it turns out that because of DNA, Sam was being investigated for not 2, not 3, but as many as 36 other murders. 36. 3 dozen. He had just been charged with the murder of the 3 women. Now he's being investigated for the murder of 36 more women. And these were just ones that they believed were committed in the 1980s, with the first murder believed to be in Mississippi. Remember that first murder back in the day that earlier in this video that he was not indicted for, and in fact he was just extradited down to Florida? Well, that case was actually reopened because he wasn't acquitted of it, he just wasn't indicted on it. Due to the area that he was in, they actually started testing his DNA against 93 other murders. Now, these might have been murders that he committed and they might not have been, but he was being tested for all of these murders. 93! Now we've gone from 36, 3 dozen, to 93 murders. September 2014, he was actually tried for the woman he attacked. Finally, that survived. He was tried for her, but he was also tried for the 3 murders that he had been arrested for, and he was tried for the woman he attacked. And with her witness testimony and the way she said that he went about things, it matched the other the murder, the way the women were murdered. And her testimony and DNA evidence that leaked him to them rendered a guilty verdict on September 25th of 2014. So finally, he's guilty. Finally, we find him guilty of something. Though during this trial, he kept saying, oh, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. I'm sorry if, well, I'm not really sorry. I'm not sorry that he got caught because he wasn't innocent. And he did this to so many women. But before he decided to kick the bucket, proverbial bucket that is, during his time in prison, he just decided to start confessing. And I watched some of the ones, like some of his confessions, and it's really crazy. I could see why people would think he was really approachable, and they would let him get away with this because he seems so, in his interviews or his confessions. Now this sounds bad because it is a confession, but he sounds pleasant, like somebody you'd talk to on the porch. You know, it just kind of sit next to and talk to on the porch. He sounds like a pleasant human being. He doesn't sound like a killer until he actually starts talking. Like, even when he was talking about certain girls that he abducted, he's like, yeah, I really liked her. She had this honey-colored skin, and she was a big woman, you know? And things like that. He would talk like that, but he would talk with such affection about these certain ones. And he was very just not what I was expecting when I was watching the videos. And he just, maybe because he was an elderly gentleman by the time they started doing these interviews, but he just didn't come off as the way I thought he would. I mean, I guess a person that kills 93 people, I I guess I thought he would have a certain demeanor about him. But that's the way these guys get away with it for so long, is that they don't have this demeanor. Also, is if you notice with this guy, he didn't keep trophies. Like the ones that have kept trophies and they've gotten caught, he didn't keep any trophies from his kills. I've said in previous ones, it's the trophies that seem to always get the guys caught. Yeah, it totally does. Because this is like, I don't know, 30 plus years that he got away with this. My math's really bad, okay? I'm going to go ahead and use the e.l.f. under eye setting powder. I really like this stuff. I wish it came in a bigger container. So e.l.f., if you're listening, I want a bigger container. Well, so he's in jail now, and he is just talking. He is just talking. I mean, he's got nothing that's holding him back now. So he starts confessing to all kinds of murders. Within a few short months, he had confessed of another dozen murders, and he's even confessing and saying that he has committed at least 90 murders. 90. And so they start scrambling, and they're like, okay, so as long as this man is talking, we want to keep him talking, right? And he really didn't have anywhere to go. He was serving life sentence, so he would get another life sentence added to it if it was a confirmed death, and he wasn't just making up stories. No, he wasn't. He was just kept talking. And so cold cases that were cold started becoming hot again, and they could actually take DNA and match them to his DNA. And then it was like, okay, he did do these things. Set the rest of my face, I'm using the Wet n Wild Photo Focus setting powder. I messed this one up and made way too much come into the cap. So it's going to be super dusty when I do this. Just think of it as effects, movie effects. So Sam had said that he had committed these 90 murders over the course of 14 states from 1970 to 2005. When really his murder span was from about, there's conflicting stories, but from about 1956 to 2012. And we're going to use another Wet n Wild product. This is the Let's Get Smashed blush. This was a Fantasy Makers, their Halloween edition, and it literally smells like pumpkins. It is one of my favorites in the way it's made and everything like that, and the color, and it's got a little Jack face on it from Nightmare Before Christmas, or Jack-o'-lantern face. I really like it. Anyways, so he just kept confessing. He confessed to, and now I'm going to have to kind of read these off as I'm talking because there are so many that once he started confessing, he just kept confessing. In November 15th, 2018, he confessed to a woman that was 23 years old. In November 16th, 2018, he confessed to a 1977 strangling of an unidentified woman. In 1982, this is all this is all November 16th, 2018. He also confessed to the murder of an 18-year-old woman by strangulation. All of his were strangulation. And they were all kidnapped or kind of got lured into the car and strangled and beaten, strangled, and to death. And there is no sexual assault. The strangulation was actually the sexual gratification for him. And then 1982 of a 55-year-old woman. 1996 of a 40-year-old woman. The bodies of these two women were found in Houma, I can't say that name, Louisiana. November 19th, 2018, he confessed to a 1978 murder of a 36-year-old woman dumping her body off of a cliff. Just dumping her body right off of a cliff. Like I said, there's a lot to read, and I literally had to stop listing everybody because when you say there is 93 women that he murdered, that's going to take up like 2 hours for me to list everybody. Again, I'm leaving off the names just to give some privacy, but you can look them up. They are public record. It seems like November was his time to just confess. So November 20th, same year, he confessed to 2005 murder of a 46-year-old woman. In January of 2019, the grand jury just kept finding him guilty because he was already confessing. He was serving his life sentence. He was not getting out. This man was not getting out. He was going to spend the rest of his life in jail. I would have thought that they would have given the death penalty because he just kept confessing and they kept finding that this was an accurate statement, that he was not lying, that this was a real thing that he actually did. By now, Sam obviously knew he wasn't getting out of jail, so he just decided to keep on. And boy, did he keep on going. And like I said, I have to read them because there's so many. He confessed to a 19-year-old woman that was found near Fort Jackson, South Carolina, that was murdered in 1978. A 20-year-old woman that was found in 1982 in Marion County, Florida. In November 27th, 2018, the FBI announced that the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program team had confirmed 34 of Sam's confessions to be true. But they were not stopping because he wasn't stopping. The more he confessed, the harder they worked because they wanted to identify these bodies for the families. And that's really why it's sad when cases go cold, because the family doesn't get closure, and they really need that closure. Sam continued to confess because he thought it would get him out of the prison that he was staying in. He was in Los Angeles County Prison, and he was wanting to get transferred out of that. So he just thought that if he kept confessing that he would get out of it eventually. December of 2018 rendered 2 more indictments upon Sam's already current life sentences. The murders in 1981 of a 23-year-old woman and in 1975 of a 34-year-old woman. Those were also added. May 2019, like I said, he just kept talking. It's like it started and he just it was a landfall of just kept going. I have no idea how this is going to look, but I'm going to add some blue, and it's going to be from this Hip Dot palette because it's pretty much all blues. So as he kept confessing, I have to keep reading because I can't remember all of these dates and particulars. In May of 2019, he confessed to murdering a 32-year-old woman in 1991. And then he also confessed to murdering a murder in 1984, kidnapping, beating and murdering this woman and leaving her in a vacant lot in New York. I mean, like I said, he was just all over the freaking place. But this one was just not even an adult. This was probably his youngest victim that is known, and she was 17. This look is crazy, but I look like a circus clown, but that's okay, because we're just going with this crazy town type of story anyways. I will tell you, as of today, 79 of his 93 confessions have been confirmed. This proves that he is the most prolific serial killer in modern day history. Because I talked about like H.H. Holmes and Madame Lalaurie, and they murdered and tortured a whole lot of people, and that was a while ago. This is nowadays. This is it's the Beauty Creations Dare to Be Bright gel pen. I've been using these. I'm going to put this in my inner waterline just to add some more crazy to this look. Because this look did not turn out or go with however I don't know what I was going for, to be honest. Apparently Ronald McDonald vibes. So we're just going to go with that. And I'm going to put some of this on my lower lash line, and then I'm going to smudge it out. This is probably one of the craziest looks I've ever done, and I've done myself like a vampire and a cracked statue person. Just super, I was going for bright and I got bright, okay? So just deal with that. Well, so his cases have been proved that he killed at least 70 women. There was a person that I saw him talking about in one of his interviews or confessions, taped confessions, and he didn't even know what to refer to her as, but she was a transgender woman, and he said she was very lovely, very nice, and all of this. That didn't matter because he killed her. So like I said, while he was alive, he just kept confessing to all these murders. And as you can probably see where I'm going with this, he is not alive today. For the lips today, we're going to use one of these little Kylie Beauty lippies, and it is going to be bright too, because we're going for bright. So he actually spent his entire life, or the rest of his life, in jail in California. For my bottom lashes, I use the Smashbox Full Exposure Mascara. I just like the way it looks, makes them look fluffy. And this is the Huda Beauty Legit Lashes that I've been doing on my top. This is like a combo that I've been really jamming with. So, Mr. Samuel Little ended up passing away in a California hospital at the age of 80. And after confessing to multiple murders. And this was in 2020 that he passed away. And he didn't pass away from anything like, he wasn't passed away from lethal injection. He actually just passed away from like old age. He had diabetes and a heart issue. And eventually his body just gave out. And he was in the hospital when that happened. Maybe his confessions were a way of like getting everything off of his conscience. I don't really know the reason, and I don't think really anybody knows the real reason as to why he actually confessed to all of these things. But they are still open cases, and they are still actively trying to search and seek out the actual DNA, his DNA, and match them with the people who had passed away or the victims that they're still hunting for. Just a little fun fact. Samuel did have a long-term girlfriend, and we will call her Jean. She actually met him through a previous girlfriend that he had been shoplifting with, and he was actually arrested through shoplifting with this woman named, we'll call her Lucy. And the Lucy had come in and was arrested and got into the prison system or the jail with Gene, and she was like, hey, I'm gonna confess against my boyfriend, and Gene ended up liking him, and they were actually ended up being together until she died. Now, she didn't die, like, she wasn't really old when she passed away. She was only 27 when she passed away, and Gene actually passed away from having a brain hemorrhage, which, if you don't know what a hemorrhage is, it's a bleed. Like, if you hemorrhage something, you bleed out, you're bleeding profusely. So she just had a brain bleed at 27 and passed away, but that's what he considered his long-term girlfriend. And that was just a little extra fact that I wanted to throw in there. But if you guys have any comments about my little Ronald McDonald eye look, or just want to comment, and let's keep it nice, we can start a conversation. You can DM me. My information to my Instagram is actually down in the description bar. If you had fun watching me make this look, or had fun listening to me, go ahead and give this a thumbs up, and hit the subscribe button, because if you keep coming back, why aren't you subscribed? Anyways, much for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and as always, stay kind to each other. Have an awesome day. Take care. See you next time.